Shabbat Shalom. On this Shabbat Chazon, the Shabbat preceding Tisha B'Av, the day in which we remember the so many calamities that have occurred in our lifetimes. It is Parshat Devarim. On Parshat Devarim, Moshe offers his farewell address. On the plains of Moab, he reviews their 40-year wilderness journey, recounting the appointments of judges, recalls the tragic incident of the spies, and describes recent victories over kings Sichon and Og. You know, nearly the entirety of the book of Devarim is a retelling of everything that has happened before, and Moshe Rabeynu, Moses, our teacher, the master educator, does more than tell the people what the law is. He tells us why the law is. So not only does he become the teacher in Deuteronomy, the book of Devarim, in words engraved on Jewish hearts ever since, he tells the entire nation that they must become a nation of educators, that we must become a nation of educators. These are the words which Moshe spoke to all Israel on the other side of the Yarden. The very first verse of our Torah portion. Note in green the word Devarim, which means words. Devarim, also the name of our parsha. Eile Devarim asher diber Moshe el kol Yisrael be'ever hayarden. There he is, Moshe, speaking to the entirety of the nation. I recognize many of you. I think we were standing next to each other. So we're going to go back now to the book of Shmot, of Exodus, for a moment. Why? Because Moshe is going to be speaking a lot of words in the book of Devarim, the book of words. However, if you recall, earlier on in our book, Vayomer Moshe el Adonai, bi Adonai lo ish devarim kvad peh ukvad lashon anochi. Yah reaches out to Moshe to lead the people out of Egypt. But what does Moshe do? He finds an excuse that he's not the guy that Yud-Heh-Vav-Heh is looking for. Lo ish devarim. I am not an eloquent man. It really means, literally, I'm not a man of words. My mouth is heavy. Kavad peh, ukvad lashon anochi. I'm slow of speech. I got a slow tongue. Lashon. Oh my gosh, Moshe. You're not going to be able to take on this task. So, my friends, I ask the simple question, how do we get from there to where we are now? Moshe, slow of speech, maybe he's got a stutter, to the Moshe who delivers an eloquent speech for the entirety of the book of Devarim. You know, this made me think of this man, the great actor of blessed memory, James Earl Jones. You know, when James Earl Jones was 8 years old, his family moved, and it had such an effect on him that he remained mute for almost 8 years, self-afflicting himself, that he was so afflicted by this move. It played havoc on his soul. So James Earl Jones, through the gift of poetry and the gift of theater, he brings us Darth Vader. He brings us the voice of Mustafa in The Lion King. He brings us The Great White Hope, which I wanted to go see on Broadway, but that's a whole other story. And James Earl Jones is quoted as saying, one of the hardest things in life is having words in your heart that you cannot utter. Now, we all know that that is true for every one of us, even when we do have the gift of voice. So let's take a look at Moshe and how he goes from the reluctant prophet to Moshe Rabeynu, Moses, our teacher. In our parsha, we read, Ushemartem v'yasitem, keep them therefore and do them. Do what? The mitzvot. Follow the instructions and we'll be able to make our way. That's the halacha. That is the path in this world to get to where we've been promised. Ki hi hachokmatchem uvenetechem aleinei ha'amim. This is your wisdom and your understanding in the sight of the nations, who shall hear all these statutes and say, Rak am hachacham v'nachvon hagoy hagadol hazeh. What a great nation is a wise and understanding people. This is an interesting phrase, chacham v'navon. Some of you might recognize that these are the same words that Paro uses when Paro says we need to find a person that is wise and understanding, chacham v'navon. And who does he find? Joseph in his prison cell. Now we have an entirety of a people who are taking on the attributes of Joseph, if we follow the instructions that are already inscribed in our hearts. Not only are we supposed to do them, but we're supposed to become educators and teachers too. Who are we supposed to teach them to? Teach your children well. Crosby, Stills, Nash, and Young. Sound familiar? We're going to be chanting those very words when we chant the Shema. You shall teach them to your children. Speaking of them, when you sit in your house, when you walk on the way, when you lie down, and when you get up. Teach your children. Doesn't have to be the children we gave birth to. It could be the children that we are in relationship with at any time in our life. And so, that said, I want to offer you who have been our teachers. Here are some of those I'm sure will resonate with you, because this was the list I came up with for myself. My parents, my friends, classroom teachers, some of them anyway, children for sure, mentors, pets and animals, and life itself have been my teachers. And what did my teachers teach me? What have your teachers taught you? Perseverance, love of learning, calm, patience, bravery, risk-taking, passion, toughness, belief in self, and love. I'm sure all of these things resonate for you in some of the ways in which your teachers have affected your life. I want to share with you a few specific teachers from my life who have had a great and lasting effect on me. First of all, two teachers from college, two theater teachers and directors. Not only did I study with them, but they cast me in roles. Joe Paparone and Frank Kratt, of blessed memory. I think the greatest lesson that I learned from both of them was that talent was not really what it's about. There's a lot of people with talent, but it is the loss of ego and serving the greater need of what the theater offering is asking us to embody, to bring a message into the world for change. This is my director at the Living Stage Theater Company, the late Robert Alexander. From him, I learned that theater was not about show business. He emphasized that show business is the business of showing. Now, yes, I love show business, and I love theater as much as the next person. But theater is not about being you. It is about using you and being of service. And that's what we did at Living Stage. We were in service of the greater community to bring out and create environments in which people could understand and live out the beauty and greatness which is our artistic birthright. Finally, two teachers from my Jewish world, Rabbi David Schneier and the late Rabbi Leonard Kahan. David instilled with me at a time that I really, really needed the love of Yiddishkeit. He brought me back to my roots and said, you know, if I teach you some chazanut, some cantorial arts, you might be able to make a few bucks. Well, that's what happened, and so much more. Rabbi Leonard Kahan was the very first rabbi to give me an opportunity to serve as a shaliach tzibor at Congregation Har Shalom here in Potomac, Maryland. And Rabbi Kahan gave me my first shofar and gave me many books that are on my bookshelf still. He saw something in me that I had yet to see in myself. These teachers helped my seeds to grow. Which brings me to this question. Who am I? When a teacher helps my seeds to grow, your seeds to grow, that teacher helps us to rediscover, to remember, to be reborn perhaps into the person we were meant to be, and carry with us all of the persons we have been, including, this is me, 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 and this is me. Me as a young child, me in the choir, me in the high school band, me with my own band, me in our work with Renee, and me as rabbi reading a ketubah. I have been so gifted by my teachers, among whom, of course, were my parents of blessed memory, among whom are my children, among whom are my pets. She was a good dog. Among whom is Renee, and among whom is all of you. And so, my sweet friends, on this Shabbat Chazon, on this Shabbat Devarim, may we remember and honor all of the teachers from Moshe Rabeynu onward who have made our seeds grow. Shabbat Shalom.